Welcome to this video. For this project, we were assigned to describe why do we need to understand the role of culture in international businesses. Since the international economy transcends borders and cultures, the cultural dimension of global businesses significantly impacts the strategic direction business take. However, business culture has a broader connotation and encompasses an organization's visions, ethics, etiquette, beliefs, and working styles. For the geographic location, South Korea occupies the southern part of the Korean peninsula, which extends to 1,100 kilometers from the Asian mainland. This mountainous peninsula is flanked by the Yellow Sea to the west and the Sea of Japan to the east. At the southern end is the Korean Strait and the East China Sea. The total area of the country amounts to 100,032 kilometers per square. The national territory can be divided into four general regions: the eastern of high mountains and narrow coastal plains, the western of wide coastal plains, the southern region with mountains and valleys, and the southeastern region dominated by the wide basin of the Naktung River. The relief is mainly mountainous, so most of the soil is not arable. The lowlands located mainly in the west and the southeast make only to 30% of the total land area, their main language being Korean, their currency being the won, and the five main cities being Seoul, Busan, Daegu, Daejeon, and Incheon. Moving on to the demographic, the current population of the Republic of Korea is 51,071,062 people. And talking about religion, according to the Pew Research Center, about 46% of the population have no religious affiliation, 23% are Buddhists, and 29% are Christians. According to a 2015 national census, 56.1% are irreligious. Protestantism represents the 90.7% of the population, and Korean Buddhism represents the 50.5%, and finally the Catholicism represents the 79%. And then we have the business particularities in South Korea. When we as Mexican negotiators take part into negotiation with South Korean people, we must look for these special aspects. The first one being age and status. Respect for age and status are very important in Korean culture, with hierarchy affecting all aspects of social interactions. Everyone has a role in society as a result of the hierarchy, therefore, it is vital to respect it. Next, we have the business cards. The exchange of business cards is an essential part of initial meetings. It allows Koreans to quickly determine their counterparts' all-important position, such as title and rank. While still standing, you should politely hand a business card over with two hands and receive one in return. Next aspect is Korean names. Korean family names are mostly of one syllable, while given names tend to have two. The family name comes first. As an example, we have Kim Tae-woo. Until you are on a very good terms with a Korean counterpart, it is best to use the family name preceded by an honorific such as Mr., whether speaking directly to them or about them to another Korean. In settings that call for great respect or formality, you should use your counterparts for my title and surname, such as, I'll give you an example, Chairman Lee. The next aspect is bowing and handshakes. Koreans bow to those senior to them both as a greeting and show of respect. The junior person initiates the bow, bending from the waist to an angle of 30 and 45 degrees from vertical. A less accentuated bow is returned as an acknowledgement from the more senior person. Bowing in Korea is not as pronounced as in other countries such as Japan, but greet the highest status individual first, followed by the oldest when meeting a group of Korean people. The individual with the highest status usually enters a room first. For Mexican business people, extending a simple handshake when greeting and taking leave is fine. Just don't be surprised when to handshake and a bow during the course of a national meeting. Next, we have the dress code. Formal and conservative men should wear dark-colored business suits with ties and white shirts. Jewelry for men and women should be kept to a minimum, and it could be for use a watch and a wedding ring. It will be fine. Women should also dress conservatively and in subdued colors. Another important aspect to touch is the geopolitical sensitives. Korea and Japan dispute the territorial sovereignty of several islands in the sea between the two countries. This includes the small islets called Dokdo in Korea and are known as Takeshima in Japan. As discussed earlier, the two countries refer differently to the sea surrounding these islands. To maintain good business relationship with Korean stakeholders, it's wise to respect local cultures and preferences, including by ensuring you use local and appropriately referenced version of any geographical materials, such as maps that might be used in a presentation to a Korean audience. Not observing such delicate affairs can cause some insults and maybe lead to a business relationship to cease. The final two aspects that are important as well is the first one being dining. A great deal of relationship building takes place in bars and restaurants. Always accept dinner invitation, as this is the Korean opportunity to assess your trustworthiness and whether they wish to conduct business with people. Koreans generally prefer to concentrate on their food while eating and to talk after the meal is finished over coffee or maybe some tea. The rules or aspects you should consider is unless your host raises it first, avoid discussing business during a meal. The next one is ensure you don't serve yourself or eat before the host initiates. Always put food taken from a serving dish onto your plate or bowl before eating. Although chopsticks are the most predominantly used utensil, as well as spoons for soups and noodles, you may ask for forks or knives when dining in larger cities. And the final aspect of the dining subject is that never pick up any food with your fingers. Talking about the fruit, is eating in slices with forks. And the final aspect, and also important, is public holidays. The ones that we as Mexican negotiators need to consider are Solal and Chuseok, because those holidays are really important for Korean culture.
Italy is in South Central Europe. It consists of a peninsula encompassing 301,200 square kilometers. The current population of Italy is about 60 million and several dialects are spoken, but Italian is the official language as is the one taught in school and used in government. The major religion is Roman Catholicism, and this is not surprising as the Vatican City. It's a republic with 20 regions under the central government. The republic was formed in 1946, and the legal system is a combination of the civil law and the ecclesiastical law. Italian patriotism is largely a matter of convenience because the red, green, and white flag has meaning for most citizens, but doesn't inspire a great deal of enthusiasm. Education is given high prominence in Italy. This system is divided into 5 main levels: preschool, primary school, lower secondary school, upper secondary school, and university. This is mandatory from ages from 6 to 16, and in this case, public education is free for all children who are resident in Italy, regardless of nationality. Also, it's high quality, equivalent, or even higher than private schools. It has a rich heritage in art, history, religion, cuisine, architecture, and fashion. These cultural legacies have been profoundly influential in defining its cultural tradition. This is why Italian culture continues to be romanticized across the world, so much so that it can be challenging for people to stop recalling cliché ideas of Italians. Nevertheless, as one of the top 10 exporters in the world, Italy dramatically benefits from its cultural products, having as main commercial partners Germany, France, the United States of America, Switzerland, and Spain. Italians themselves are commonly known for being flexible, confident, and charming people. Generally, Italian conversations are full-body experience, complete with lively hand gestures and animated facial expressions. Typically, people stand close to one another and personal space is smaller than in other cultures. People may speak loudly, but this is usually a sign of excitement rather than anger. Something that impacts the main topic of this video, that is the negotiation, which I will talk about in a more specific way in a moment. Now, moving forward to social and business organization. As I said before, Italian culture has a deep focus on relationship, and socialization is important on both formal and informal level. Italians might talk of a social distinction between the north and the south of the country. The north, industrialized, is generally perceived as being more modern, individualistic, and business-minded. Meanwhile, the cities in the south are typically slightly smaller. The south is often associated with traditional family-oriented values and a slow pace of life. Italy's official currency is the euro. Italians are known for their family-centric culture, and this can be seen very easily since there are a number of small and mid-sized businesses, and even many of the larger companies are still primarily controlled by single families. But now, making the comparison with our country, which is Mexico, we realize that there are more similarities than differences, starting with the fact that both countries' flags have the same 3 colors. Another great example is that it's generally known that in both countries people are fun-loving, very friendly, and spend their free time at parties. However, if you want to differentiate between the 2 countries, you should know that if you see the commercial comparison between Italy and Mexico, you have to keep the first one ahead because it's more developed and financially solvent. It may be because Italians are productive and entrepreneurs mostly. Punctuality is not a priority for Italians. This may not be a problem for many Mexicans since in the country we have very similar trends, but in general when doing business with Italians we have to be patient, expect delays, and be flexible. Because Italians generally don't take work plans as absolute deadlines, and they tend to multitask and do many things at once, often changing their priorities. During the negotiations, you may be contacting or providing information to different people with specific functions who have limited decision-making authority, so we may face a negotiation team-up. It is necessary to be prepared for long negotiations because even though in our culture we always live with limited times and in a hurry, negotiations with Italians are often slow, and the reason is that Italians tend to carefully assess the benefits and risks of the process. Physical contact such as a hug or a pat are common among men, while kisses and butt cheeks is traditional for greeting among women. Shaking hands on departure and arrival as a greeting is important, particularly in business meetings. In addition, academic status, rankings, and titles are all used during conversations, and first names are not permitted until there has been a long association. Meetings are a way of gaining a deeper and more common understanding of an issue rather than being the conclusive part of a decision making process. So, in this sense, unlike Mexico, they are more exploratory and goal oriented. As a country known for its love of food, the business lunch custom in Italy should not come as a surprise. Italians like to spend this time discussing things other than just business. And now, one of my favorite things is that as Milan is one of the world's four main centers of fashion, it shouldn't come as a surprise that dresses and attire plays an important role in Italian culture. They expect men to be dressed in dark colors with quality fabrics and women to wear elegant and modest pants or skirt suits, accessorizing with tasteful jewelry and simple makeup. Finally, we have to remember that Italians are a dynamic bunch and they are not afraid to express their emotions, even at work. It is important to view this from a perspective other than your own and consider this constructive conflict that will help everyone work more effectively and build a stronger relationship of trust. Therefore, as entrepreneurs facing the Italian culture and to be good in a negotiation, it is important to enjoy this process. You can also expect them to question everything, and sometimes it is necessary to face arguments and discussions based on emotions, facts, or even both. So, the safest practice when organizing and attending meetings in Italy is to act local, so your business partner will appreciate your cultural sensitivity. Morocco is a North African country bordering the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. It's a constitutional monarchy with a bicameral legislature and a multi-party system with universal suffrage. Morocco has two official languages, Arabic and Amazigh. Each language is spoken in different dialect forms. Also, French and to a lesser extent Spanish are also very present in this country, while English is gaining ground in the world of business and international trade. Morocco is a country of multi-ethnic groups with a rich culture and civilization, which through its history have impacted its social structure. In addition, different types of religion coexist in the country, such as paganism, Judaism, Christianism, and Islam. There are different ways in which Moroccan art is expressed. For example, beautiful crafts in rocks, clothing, jewelry, ceramics, sculpture, painting, and calligraphy. And the famous chefs are a big part of the culture, and its Americans have a fun style of calling and attracting their customers. In Morocco, there are two types of education, public and private. A private education sector is under the tutelage of the government, made up of preschool, primary, and secondary schools, and whose structured programs and methods are very similar to public education. Moroccan culture is friendly and hospitable if you have the right attitude and respect its customs and traditions. The consumption of alcohol and dressing scantily, for example, are acts that are not well seen in this country and that could cause problems for the visitor. Also, the best greeting is the handshake, both in women and men, and the kissing greeting is only when there is a very strong friendship and family ties. The mix of Arabic, Muslim, Berber, and French culture has given Morocco a complex business etiquette, as most Moroccans are practicing Muslim, Islamic values and have an influence on the business culture. I will start by saying that Moroccans prefer to do business with people they know and respect, as they expect to spend time cultivating a personal relationship before doing business. With Moroccans, it's very important to make a good impression when you meet them for the first time. They may ask you some things that may be considered personal or irrelevant to us. And like some Arab countries, tea is the favorite drink, from meetings with friends and tourists to meeting with formal or official parties. In some occasions, Moroccans could invite you to their homes once they meet you, and in this case you should bring them an appropriate gift such as fruits or flowers to show hospitality. And because Moroccans judge by appearances, you will need to dress and present yourself appropriately, so you should dress conservatively, and whether you are a male or a female. Men should wear dark suits, while long skirts that cover most of their arms and the legs are recommended for women. The appointment is an important thing since it will be necessary for the negotiations. If you want to make an appointment with them, you must make it in advance and confirm 1 or 2 days before the meeting if you will be able to attend it. Since they do not trust words, they prefer to have it written and signed. Most Moroccans have an open door policy even in meetings, which means that unlike our culture, there is not much privacy when you interact and there could be frequent interruptions and people could walk into a room and start a different discussion than the one you were having, and you could walk into the discussion but you shouldn't bring it back to the table after the person leaves. In Morocco, companies are hierarchical. The person with the highest rank makes the decision, but only after having a group consensus. We must also know that the Moroccans are looking for long-term business relationships, not just a single negotiation and that's it. Moroccans do not normally have direct communications, especially with negative things, and we have to know about heckling since they will hardly see an offer like the final one. So it may take you several visits to complete simple tasks with them. Finally, it can be said that to establish a relationship with a person from Morocco, you must consider that they practice another religion very different from the one we practice. They are very attached, and you should keep in mind that they have days when they cannot assist you to make agreements, and we have to try to respect their priorities and to avoid meetings during their prayer time or during Ramadan. To communicate with them, you must adapt to their language and dress in a conservative way, so you will start with a very good impression. All this to achieve success in the negotiation process.
As part of the Oceanian continent, we have Australia. With a population of 24 million people, they enjoy a high standard of living with freedom and possibilities around them. In this country, 76% of Australians speaks English. Australia is a multicultural country with a huge amount of difference between Mexicans. As part of the investigation, I contrasted the culture factors that as Mexicans we should know. As first, we have social organization. Humility and authenticity are strong values in Australian culture. Also, egalitarianism strongly influences social cultural values in Australia. For them, a person's level of education and wealth does not earn him or her status or respect. Rather, it is recognized as an advantage in life. Next, we have religion. Christianity is currently the most dominant religion in Australia. However, Australia tends to avoid explicit expressions of religiosity. Public promotion of the effectiveness of one's religious views, including atheism, is really generally not appreciated. Moving with communication. Australia does take conversation informally. They tend to use swearing as a resource to mitigate tensions in conversations. With presenting an idea, avoid focusing on the unnecessary details and instead stress the facts, figures, and the goals of the idea. As an aspect in negotiations with Australians, take these considerations to ensure positive results. Make appointments with a few days in advance. Also, punctuality is crucial for them. 2. Australians can use humor in dealings to lighten the mood. Use this to build a good atmosphere for discussion. 3. Anyone present at the meetings is generally welcome to give their opinion, regardless of their age of business hierarchies. 4. Australians may use swearing in meetings they not consider as an unprofessional behavior. 5. Australians do not feel the necessarily to build personal relationships before doing business. However, they are open to cultivating business friendships, especially in the long term. Aspercations take these considerations. Using a position of power as leverage in negotiation is highly unacceptable. Usually begin with honest and firm position that does not require back-forward tactics. Bargaining tactics are not usually used by Australians. This will likely discourage them. And last, they don't like high-pressure tactics.
Hi, my name is Viviana and I'm going to talk about Colombia. Colombia is a sovereign country located in the northwestern region of South America. It is constituted in a unitary, social, and democratic state of law whose form of government is presidential. Colombia does not have an official religion. However, Roman Catholicism is the dominant faith and deeply culturally persuasive. It is deeply infused in the public life in Colombia. This is visible in the language. One might hear the following phrases like Dios te bendiga, si Dios quiere, and gracias a Dios. Education in Colombia is made up of initial education, preschool education, basic education, secondary education, and higher education. The language they speak is Spanish. The aspects that you have to know if you're a professional and wants to establish negotiations with this country are the following: be respectful, be generous and open to performing favors, show respect for Catholicism and the Christian tradition, avoid making jokes about illicit drugs or drug consumption. Colombians do not like to be stereotyped as narcotraficantes, and do not ask about the violence in Colombia unless you have a specific question. Another thing that is good to know is the greetings. A firm handshake with an eye contact and a smile is the appropriate greeting in most of the situations. And once people become acquainted, greetings become a lot warmer, and Colombians often prefer to hug. The way in which a Mexican professional has to adapt to the cultural shock in the process of negotiating interculturally is not so difficult. Being a neighbor country with Colombia, it makes us the things a little bit easy because we share much of our culture. But that doesn't mean that it has to be perfect all the time. Doing business with Colombia can be just as easy or difficult as doing business with another country in the world. Colombia managed a very simple business culture characterized by carrying out commercial relations through dialogue and knowledge of the market with which they wanted to be linked. Receiving them with a cordial and respectful manner is important to them. Positive emotions are welcome for them. Be open and communicative, and try to link and access invitations after hours.
Hello, I'm Jorge, and I'm going to talk to you about Canada. As we already know, Canada is considered one of the countries with the best standard of living in the world due to its natural wealth and cultural diversity. It is also in the top 10 in terms of life expectancy, education, and GDP. This country has an extremely strong economy, even larger than the one of the US. According to analysis, in addition to being rich in monetary matter, it is also rich in ethnic and cultural diversity. This is a country where respect and tolerance for diversity are evident, due to the millions of immigrants who work and live together in peace, coming from different countries with different ideologies, religions, and lifestyles. Without neglecting the beauty of its cities, based on its combination of its natural abundance and its modern architecture. Speaking of attitudes, the Canadian is naturally friendly and has no problem giving you his help. Another characteristic that identifies them a lot as Canadians is punctuality and honesty, who also have a high respect for the rules of coexistence and civility, which makes Canada an orderly and calm country. In terms of religion, it is very similar to that of our country, Mexico, since the majority of the Catholic religions is practiced. Another point is the Canadian education system. It is similar to what we know. It is made up of 4 fundamental levels: primary and secondary schools, technical institutes, language schools, and universities. That is public and free from preschool to high school. In Canada, there are 2 official languages. One is the English, with nearly 60% of the people, and 22% of the people speak French. Canada is a country very similar in many of its social aspects to Mexico. Most of them practice the same religion as us, the Catholic, which facilitates many interactions, just like the type of people, since we as Mexicans also stand out as kind people, just like Canadians. You should also keep in mind that the behavior of people varies depending on the province where that person is. Since in cities like Quebec and Toronto, the negotiations are a little more formal, so you have to speak properly. In Vancouver, in the west of the country, it will be a more relaxed negotiation. To successfully conclude your commercial relationship with Canadians, the agreement must be closed with a handshake and a written request, which must be later confirmed by letter, in which you mention the terms and conditions that were agreed by both parties.
In conclusion, as part of the subject of negotiation, interacting with people of different nationalities will be part of our daily life in work and personal aspects. Knowing how to relate to different people depending on their nationalities, personalities, and culture factors give us advantage to achieve better negotiations and interpersonal relationships. In this integrative product, we analyze the main characteristics of 6 different countries around the 6 continents in the world. In order to know how negotiators deal with their main culture factors that influence their decision making, their communication, and also their understanding when doing business. Thus, this activity teaches us to investigate and get to know how our counterparts behave in order to make our counterpart satisfied when negotiating.